So I think with the title fight coming up this weekend, Jared Cannonier's timing on having such an emphatic win in the middleweight division, so close in proximity to a title fight, was just a great thing for him. Um, Now, a lot of people are saying that the next thing for Jared Cannonier needs to be Yoel Romero. And I think that that's a possibility, but to quote Jorge Masvidal, I don't think it's super necessary. A lot of people think that that's like the only logical next fight for Cannonier after just his dominant, devastating victory last weekend over Hermanson, who I'll just say about Cannonier real quick, like, he is such a physical, terrifying force in this middleweight division. Like, his physicality, he's a former heavyweight who is now dropped all the way down to 185, and he is just shredded and terrifying. And Hermanson fought like he was terrified in that one. Not to try to call Hermanson out or anything, obviously, he's a top contender in the UFC, so I'm not saying that, he was scared or anything, but he did fight a little bit, terrified. He was just like sprinting for that takedown off the start of the fight, and as soon as Cannonier stopped that one takedown, it was just like, oh my god, no, this is gonna be ugly. I think I audibly went yikes as soon as Cannonier stopped that first takedown of Hermanson's, and then Cannonier, it's his ability to just like walk forward and just be scary and throw big bombs and finish, have like incredible finishing instincts, kind of remind me of when Anthony Johnson came back to the UFC as a light heavyweight and was just steamrolling everybody and just was such a terrifying presence. That's kind of where Cannonier's at right now. So to get back to next fight for Cannonier, it is nice that he's so close to this main event here between Whitaker and Adesanya, which is coming up this weekend. But the winner of that fight is already determined to defend their belt against Paulo Costa. So Cannonier is going to have to sit out one set of title fights, which means that he's going to have to get one more win before he wants to challenge for the middleweight title. And a lot of people are saying Yoel Romero for that. Yoel Romero is the guy that Costa had to beat to get his title shot recently. But I have another idea that I think could be more interesting than Yoel Romero, and that would be, this is a circumstantial one, but perhaps Kelvin Gastelum, if he could get a nice finish against Darren Till at MSG next month. I think Kelvin Gastelum, if he gets like a TKO or, an exciting submission victory, any kind of like emphatic victory, by stoppage, not by decision. And also, let's say if like Adesanya TKOs Whitaker, then, Gastelum would have a claim that, hey, I went 5 rounds to the guy who's the current champion. And, then he would have a big win, over Darren Till on. And that's going to be in the co-main event of MSG, which is the Masvidal-Diaz show. That's going to be a big pay-per-view with a lot of eyes on it. So if Gastelum gets a big win there, and then he's got, the claim that he's already fought the current champion, if Adesanya in this fictional scenario was the champion, to a tougher fight than Whitaker just did, then Gastelum would have some juice and a victory behind him. And I would always rather see, like, in Cannonier's rise right now, like, sure, he could fight Yoel Romero, and if he beats Romero, then sure, you're in for a title shot. But Romero's such a dangerous fighter, and he's coming off of 2 losses now in a row. He's lost 3 of his last 4. So he's like that gatekeeper for title shots, but he's a losing fighter right now. Like, I would rather, not that I want to see Romero like go far back in the rankings, but I'd rather see him fight a little bit lower down, not fighting like the next number 1 contender for his very next fight. Because let's say even if Romero wins against Cannonier, then Romero's not going to be able to, he's on a 2-fight losing streak before that. He probably isn't going to get the title shot. So it's like a number 1 contender just for Jared Cannonier type of a number 1 contender fight if he fights Romero. If he fights Gastelum, who, could have a good head of steam on him, even if, let's say, even if Whitaker were to win over Adesanya. Gastelum has the history with Whitaker, so if Gastelum can get a big win at MSG next month, I think he's the big X factor right now in this like whole next contender after Paulo Costa. So this is like how the next 9 months to 12 months of the middleweight division could go down. Like the winner of Adesanya Whitaker taking on Paulo Costa, and then Jared Cannonier, Kelvin Gastelum, they're in the mix. Whoever loses in Adesanya Whitaker would be in the mix for like that next title shot as well. Like I would even prefer to see that as like Cannonier's next fight. The loser of Whitaker Adesanya, like that would be a better fight in my opinion. The guy who just lost the title shot, or the Gastelum fight, I would honestly prefer to see than the Yoel Romero fight. Although, like, even though the Yoel Romero fight, I just don't think it's super necessary. Like all of the, the general MMA media and a lot of fans I've been hearing since the Cannonier win last weekend are saying. I just think that Cannonier versus Gastelum, if Gastelum has that head of steam, makes more sense, or Cannonier versus the loser of the Whitaker Adesanya fight would make more sense as like a true next number one contenders fight. Because I feel like if it's Romero and Cannonier, then it's like a number one contender fight for Cannonier, but not for Romero. And you'd rather see a situation where it's like a true number one contender fight, where the guy who wins this is the next one up for the belt they've got next. So that's what I would like to see from this past weekend moving forward. That's a lot of hypotheticals, and that's sort of would lay out, the next. Let's say there's the title fight this weekend, and then there'd be a title fight in early 2020 between the winner of this weekend and Paulo Costa, and then maybe International Fight Week, July time. If the stars align, we could see the Killer Gorilla, Jared Cannonier, competing for a middleweight title belt in the UFC.